Yo, yo, what's up, good people? The boys from the Fights and Geek Zone back once again. I'm Izzy,
I'm Riyaal.
and today we've got a little bit of an interesting review
something
to
a little
get
bit,
into, you
a
know.
little bit different.
Yeah, kind of different, kind of the same, which I think should be interesting going forward as far as what influence it may have on, our style, if
Yeah,
you will.
yeah.
But yeah, for now, we're continuing with our DCEU recap series. And this time around, we're going to be breaking down the Justice League. However, we're also going to be comparing, the Josstice League, if you will, the original theatrical release from 2017, directed by Joss Whedon, and alongside the Snyder Cut,
Yeah.
directed by Zack Snyder, of course, released in 2020, I believe.
Yeah, during COVID, I just know that much. Yeah. Early days of COVID.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, first things first, not even going to beat around the bush. It's certainly no question as far as Zack Snyder having the better product.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want your take on this. I was pleasantly surprised. I haven't watched Justice League since the original release. I watched it once, maybe twice. And then, recapping for our review was the first time in so many years that I'd seen it. I was surprised by the fact that, look, it's definitely subpar, but I feel like it wasn't as bad as I had remembered, or even how, the general perception would let you believe. Because, I mean, it was proper critically panned.
Yeah.
Like, fans, critics alike. I don't know if you felt any difference checking it out.
I think it's kind of the trend now with the whole DC review series that we've been doing, that
Yeah.
things aren't as bad as we
Yeah.
initially thought. I think it's, again, I'm with you there. I don't think it's as bad as people say.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm always going to compare the two. And when I compare the two, I wouldn't ever watch the Justice League.
Basically, no question about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you on that one.
Yeah, it's a nice, short and sweet. I think it's an average movie.
Yeah.
But if given the red pill or the blue pill,
If we're ever gonna go with.
Yeah.
So in essence, you're saying that your opinion on it hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mine-
because I think even while watching it, I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
character designs look a bit weird.
Yeah.
Feels a bit rushed at some points because
Yes,
you just
yes,
skip
yes.
over.
Yeah.
But obviously we'll chat about
The
run
specifics
times and stuff.
all.
and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
I just wanted
so-
to get the
Yeah, so I don't think
overall
it's a
perspective on
trash movie like
Yeah.
Wonder Woman 84.
it. Yes, it's certainly not the worst we've
Yeah.
watched. That's the other thing I wanted to highlight. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely not the worst, but
Yeah.
it's not great.
Yeah.
It's not standout,
Okay. Now I got you.
especially for what it was meant to be, like their first introduction
Yes,
of
I mean, Justice League,
Aquaman,
dog. Yeah.
yeah.
It was quite a big deal. Cool. So, getting into the specifics of it, it was interesting to see what each director deemed as important, versus not.
Yeah.
But I suppose before getting into the finer details, let's just give a young breakdown of how, each one came to be. So, rewind to, 2017,
Yeah.
Batman v Superman drops. Once again, everyone is like, nah, what the hell is this?
Yeah,
Trashing hits and all. And then DC gets into a tailspin. They're like, okay, damn it. We need to scramble. We need to, change things up. We've touched on other movies where they now all of a sudden have a lighter tone and that sort of thing. Cool. But I mean, obviously, that's also the actual release that you get.
Yeah.
Right? They do the reworking before the movie was released and you drop your lighter version, basically. Whereas with Justice League, firstly, as mentioned, there was that whole, panning of Batman v Superman, but it's also not the first time that these guys' movies are getting trashed. So there's a bit of a trend that's building, which says to them, okay, this world
Yeah,
we're trying to
and-
establish isn't really working.
Unfortunately, at the time, like Marvel was at its peak. Like,
I mean,
peak.
Yeah, you're talking, 2017.
That's your Black Panther, your Infinity War.
Infinity War was 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Black Panther as well, though. But even besides that, this is now about 9 years into the MCU, So trying to, play catch up overnight wasn't really going to work for DC. Now, on the flip side, you have Zack Snyder, who's, currently at the time, working on Justice League. He was the original director, of course, and he worked on the story. Unfortunately, his daughter then ends up passing away, to just keep it nice and brief on that front. And then he steps away, spends some time with, the family, grieve, and so on. And for DC, it became an opportunity, basically, for them to just rework the movie without Zack Snyder. Again, to cut a very long story short. And who better in their eyes, to bring in than the guy who made the Avengers,
started it all, right?
Joss Whedon. He wrote and directed Avengers 1 and Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
So they're like, nah, man, you know how to do team-up movies. Come through, clean up this movie for us. Now, Zack Snyder was about 80-90% done with his movie. So all Joss Whedon had to do was just, finish off the movie. And of course, there's a direction that's been established. This is also a moment where I'm going to shoot him some bail. You need to also keep in mind, because there's a whole thing about, Joss Whedon ruined Justice League and so on. But at the end of the day, he had a mandate to fulfill. They called him in to do a specific purpose, which is, hey man, lighten this thing up, brighten this thing up, literally, and I don't know to what extent were they involved beyond that in terms of the specifics or, the story and that sort of thing. The number one thing, which is pretty much, every studio's not only prerogative, but kind of instruction, if you will, when it comes to run times. They will always dictate how long movies should be. And I can imagine if people didn't like Batman v Superman, one of the complaints was it's very long.
Yeah.
So he was told, hey, this thing needs to be, 2 hours max. So cut out as much as you need to.
Sure.
That's the other challenge,
cut your nose
right?
to spite your face, right?
Now, fine, we may pause there and then fast forward a little bit to when Zack Snyder comes into the picture, because the movie gets released. Yeah. People hated the movie, and a campaign started online. #release the Snyder Cut. It gained a lot of traction. And again, for the true geeks out there, you would know that online fan campaigns have long been a thing and have saved many a movie.
Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog is probably like the most recent one.
People didn't like the design, and then they made a noise about it online, and it was changed to something more acceptable.
Yeah, the more original. Yeah, but
Deadpool was going to get shelved.
Oh wow!
And an online campaign is what helped them, to bring it to life. So with that in mind, the studio gets a lot of pressure from people online to release the Snyder Cut. Then Zack Snyder is brought back in to finish/rework his movie. Now, again, on both fronts, you need to understand the full context with the directors. Zack Snyder is brought back in to finish his movie, but he did not finish his 10%, rather. Yeah. He also went and rewrote certain parts of it. He reshot a couple scenes and so on.
In his backyard.
Did the whole green screen thing and everything. So, context hopefully laid out where on both fronts, the directors were working under the instruction of the studio to bring a certain vision to light. With Joss Whedon, it was, hey man, try to make this a bit more light and palatable. And then with Zack Snyder, he had the gift of hindsight, where the Justice League, had come out, saw what the criticism was. So he also has an opportunity to punch up, his original material. So I think, just to give some context in terms of everything we're going to be saying going forward, and also how to view these movies in general. Now, again, back to the specifics once more. Interesting to see what one guy thought was, pertinent versus what the other thought. And I mean, we're better to start than the beginning. The opening scene in Justice League with Henry Cavill, the whole mustache, lip quip thing, whatever. What's your take on that?
When I first saw it,
I suppose also give context to
So basically, I think Henry Cavill had other commitments. I think he was doing
Mission Impossible Fallout.
Yeah. So he had a mustache in that one.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Just get a fake mustache rather than a CGI. Anyway.
Do you know Tom Cruise? But yeah.
I think you know him better than I do.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, anyway, so Henry Cavill was called in to, I think, redo some shoots. Some reshoots. And so what DC did, the studio, they CGI'd out the mustache.
Yeah.
And when I first watched it, I was like, okay, I don't really see anything. But on the rewatch, I was just like, something's not right here on his upper lip.
Wow.
Like you can see on the... Yeah, like you can see the whole like upper lip is just it doesn't look right.
His teeth look like 2 times bigger. Like he's got all of these going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, like the cheekbones are offset weirdly and so I saw that and I was just like, oh my guys. They're already under so much flack and then that happened.
Yeah.
But the opening scene, I think, in Snyder Cut, I know I watched it, but it's escaping me.
Yeah, before we get into that one, for me, I remember when I watched that opening scene, I was like, something is weird. So for the first time, I noticed something looked strange, but I had no idea what it was. And then, of course, I see the memes and whatnot. I was like, oh, that explains it.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, there are 2 main grabs I have with it. On the one hand, it's you guys are a multi-billion-dollar studio.
Do better.
In what world are you not able to clean this up properly? Especially because one of the people that were complaining online quickly went and did their own version of it to show what a clean job could have been done. So someone in his back room did a much better job than this big studio. So that for me was just insult to injury. And to add even more insult to injury, that scene could not be more unnecessary.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is this adding to the movie? I just don't understand it.
I mean, that's kind of old DC as well. Like,
the
Wonder Woman.
Yes. There's a lot of unnecessary opening scenes and whatever. Because I can imagine it's Joss Whedon taking an opportunity to set the tone for what he's trying to establish in there. But again, like, that didn't filter into the movie at all, as far as I'm concerned. So that whole thing could have just been scrapped. And you want to tell me all those guys went and watched and reviewed that movie beforehand and not a single one was like, maybe let's just do without it if we can't fix the CGI. Especially because... I
mean, you're bringing him back from the dead. you can say, oh, the motherfuckers gave him a mustache.
Dog, we could have easily done without it. But that being said, switching over to Zack Snyder's one, with him, they did like a young recap of Superman dying and then showing how his death basically echoed throughout and which is what led to the Mother Box coming to life. Which
definitely felt more impactful for me.
Yes, I loved that because the whole time when I was watching, I don't know, okay, look, part of it is we also can't ignore the fact that the Snyder Cut is 4 hours long.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like, I've watched it a few times already, and this time I think was the most difficult for me.
Yes,
and I think it's because I kind of know what's going on, so like to sit through it and watch it again, and then try and remember stuff now as we're chatting is maybe a little bit more tricky.
It's a bit of a challenge.
But 4 hours is a long time.
It's a long time, and look, we say all the time that, you can make the movies as long as you want and whatever. But there was some fat that could have been trimmed from this, which kind of adds to the pain of watching it. But anyways...
but also, I guess, as you're saying, it's hindsight. Maybe Zack Snyder just... Because he knew his boxer was knocked out last punch.
So it's like, okay, here are some gaps that I can go and fill and
as much as I can, do as much as I can.
Plus, it was not going to be... So I think one thing I forgot to mention earlier when I mentioned the fact that studios also keep an eye on the run times. It's because when you go to the cinemas, which is a distribution channel, you need to pay them in order to show your movie. But at the same time, those cinemas are mindful of watch times because the longer your movie, the less movies they can play in a day. So it affects their income stream. Now, with Zack Snyder, not only did he have the gift of hindsight, he also had the benefit of streaming. Where you're not going to play it in the cinema, so you can literally have it as long as you want. So that being said, I also, of course, have watched it a couple of times at this point, and I don't ever recall making that direct connection as far as why the Mother Box ever came to life.
And they didn't. I don't know. In the first one, they didn't kind of say why.
But I mean, even with Snyder Cut itself, when watch, because it's shown in there. But with other times I watch, I feel like it went over my head because.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So with Justice League, when I watched it, I remember thinking to myself, no man, why is this box actually, waking up on its own randomly? Because everyone has been saying for thousands of years it's been quiet and so on. So shout out to Zack Snyder for establishing at the beginning. So now that's where you talk about a scene that influences, the
and
it
wasn't
a
long scene at all. Like,
but it gave context. So with Justice League, they did keep the scene where they mentioned the fact that maybe they're waking up because Superman came back, but it seemed. You could argue that it was speculation. It made sense because the timing-wise, he dies and then it comes up and he's this big, powerful being. So it's, they were scared, so sharp. Yeah. But
even now in Snyder Cut, I think it was Steppenwolf that said there's no Guardians.
It was there's no Guardians,
not
no
necessarily
Kryptonians.
The humans,
exactly.
Yeah. So I guess
for them, they had the conversation in the Batcave. About this is why and whatever.
But see, now this is coming from the other person who owns the mother boxes.
Exactly, which gives it a little more juice. But again, seeing it, kind of lets you know exactly what's happening.
I guess that's always a mark of good storytelling. That's cool. They say like,
exactly.
Show me, don't tell
me. Yes, that's basically what I'm getting at. The fact that we were given a chance to absorb and actually process it for ourselves was pretty dope, and cool. So then, as far as some other scenes. That were shuffled around between the two. Before we even go any further on that, I think what's this? It's escaping me now. The color.
The tone.
Yes.
The grayscale.
So the fact that the Justice League damn near looked like a Marvel movie, all bright and sparkly.
Even character designs as well was very Marvel-y.
Yeah.
Whereas here,
and then you get the darker side with Zack Snyder.
Just the tone itself.
Yeah.
And I saw Zack Snyder. He shot it in 4:3.
Yes.
4:3 ratio rather than 16:9.
It's basically a box frame as opposed to that rectangle frame
like a
that
normal
we're
TV
accustomed
frame,
to. Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't speak too much as far as the whys and what it adds, and but just sticking with the color tone for a bit. Look, we've never had a rework to this extent. Usually, what happens is, director's cuts are nothing new, right? You have your theatrical version, and there's a director's cut. There's some longer scenes included, some scenes are cut out, and whatever. But the basic settings are all the same. Color schemes are the same, the costumes are the same, and that sort of thing. Now we have a movie that was released and then again reworked damn near to the bone and re-released. So having the two color contrasts between the two movies highlighted, and we've referenced color schemes and how they affect the tone and all of that. But I think this is by far the greatest example of that coming to life, because I could literally feel in certain scenes where they were trying to be dark and emotional in Justice League, where it was watered down by the color. Because I'm like, this looks like a joyful color scheme, and you guys talk about the end of the world. Now I don't feel the impact of that. And I also watched them in order. So in my mind, I thought of Zack Snyder's one as being darker than what it turned out to be. So I was like, ooh, did he maybe go too dark? Let me see. And when I watched it, I was like, no, he got it just right, So that's where that whole thing also came into play, where the color schemes matching the tone of the movie and the story that you're trying to tell. So I think that was a horrible, horrible mistake on
going lighter, eh?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Whether it was the studio or Joss Studio that insisted, but it shouldn't have been done.
But we're always the proponents of DC just being that darker.
Of course, yeah. But I think this is arguably one of the universal elements that anyone can agree on, that it was just too big of a contrast, no pun intended, but between the colors and the story that they were telling. A couple of other movies could have used that and we wouldn't have made much of a difference, but this wasn't one of them, Then one of the other major scenes, I'm not going to go in order, I'll just randomly put them up as they come to mind. The scene with the Flash, where he gets his job interview and then goes to save Iris. Do
you think
Zack Snyder included it? It wasn't in Justice League, but I think we could have done without it, man. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I think that we could have done without. For me, I was thinking when Lois and Martha were talking,
Is this when Martian Manhunter?
Yeah. Just for the reveal of him, I feel like we didn't need that. That reveal at the end of the movie would have been perfect, where Bruce is coming out and just talking to Martian Manhunter.
Okay, talk me through which element of the Lewis and
no, I'm just going with the
the reveal only.
Yeah, I'm saying that we didn't need the reveal
I
at that
thought
point.
You meant the scene itself.
Yeah, no, I'm saying the scene we could have done without the scene. I don't really think. I mean, yeah, we could have done without that scene. I think that was just one that comes to mind for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but there's definitely a few scenes that maybe you don't need here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the whole though, it's I think for the time and when that movie came out, people weren't doing anything, so they had
I suppose maybe in those days, it's probably my having rewatched it so many times that just adds to man.
But it could also be like Zack Snyder being like, geez, I cast these people and like they're not getting any shine at all, and then because it's his last just adding people in,
Okay, that's pretty interesting then, because for me, I felt like the lines were starting to get a bit blurred between doing the Justice League movie and then also adding the backstory / setting up future movies for the individual characters. Of course, with Wonder Woman, look, that scene at the Themyscira in the beginning where they were fighting Steppenwolf, amazing.
And to be honest, those ladies are jacked.
It's insane, dog. And the fighting, the coordination, everything.
To be honest, I enjoyed the Snyder Cut fight scene a bit more.
Yes.
Yeah, it was more grittier. It was one-sided, but there was a bit of back and forth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, with all we're talking a lot about the different scenes, but with all the shared scenes, one thing that jumped out is the fact that for the most part, with Zack Snyder, they were longer, but it also gave more context to whatever is going on there, So I could watch that, again and again, no problem. But with some of the other people's backstory scenes, shall we say, I felt like whether it was a bit too long or a little unnecessary, I was like, this is unnecessarily adding to the runtime, even with the ladies that were singing that little that choral song.
I was like, okay, I remember the singing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, it's still going on.
Yes.
Homie left already.
Yes, that's the other thing. It also took quite a while. I mean, add it as a score, if anything, and then let the movie carry on its own.
Use it as like Aquaman's theme or something.
Exactly. So especially when they show him, at Atlantis or just on land, whatever. But I don't think we needed to give him that much shine. No offense, to the choir and all. The big one, of course, is the ending, the big fight with Steppenwolf.
Yeah, but before we even get to that, Justice League Steppenwolf was the only villain that was shown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's before. So now in Snyder Cut, you've got Steppenwolf, you've got Desaad, the Blackie,
the
middleman, and then Darkseid, and we actually see Darkseid.
Yes.
And what a cool character design as well.
And it wasn't for the sake of adding him in. The backstory there was pretty dope. Yeah. Where it's revealed that Steppenwolf disappointed Darkseid at some point.
Betrayed him or something.
He's been conquering worlds on his behalf to try and get into his good graces again. So I think that kind of ties in.
It was a much better story than him having like a mother complex with the mother boxes.
The mother boxes,
Mother, I will find you.
Yeah.
Now, to be honest, Steppenwolf was a much better villain this time around.
Yeah.
As you say, he's got a better motivation now. Like he wants to get back in the good books.
Yeah.
So.
And the tease with Darkseid was pretty dope. Also on some. Okay, we see him, he's about to step in, but clearly he's meant, for...
So, first we see him coming out, out of the mother box, panel.
Yeah. It was that
chatting to them.
Shadow figure of his...
and, you could see how powerful he is because you see the parademons just, bowing before him.
Yeah.
And he's not even there. And and then the ending scene. Well, you were speaking about the ending scene, which I guess we can speak...
basically, for me, I mean, look, the fights were a little different. Cool, Superman's entrance, fine. But the big thing is Flash saving the day.
Yeah.
That whole Dostoevsky nonsense that we had in Justice League.
So I think that's one of the notes I actually wrote down. Flash wasn't a comic relief character this time.
Yeah.
He had a bit more substance to it.
Yes. He is goofy, quirky.
He's goofy, but they showed his intelligence.
Yes.
They showed his intelligence for one, and they showed he's willing to risk it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. I think that was a pretty dope turnaround, because they also in Justice League had the family coming up again and again, and I'm like,
it wasn't here this time.
Man,
not necessary.
It wasn't adding a single thing to that, and then to flip it around to when Flash, firstly, the look and expression of disappointment, when. I mean, homie got hurt.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a little slip and fall, And he's like trying to power through it. He's like, come on, Barry, heal.
Yeah.
And they're like, where are you? He's like, I'm sorry, guys. Just, I need to take 5 and all.
But even just that visual when they're turning back time, I thought it was stunning.
Yeah, that's the next thing I'm getting into, when he's then running, and then you see everything just rebuilding, and
and
the whole
you just check like
him.
Superman coming from blood back into Superman. It's like, whoa, what a cool visual.
And even the little speech that he was saying to his dad, because of course we've seen throughout the movie that his main motivator is trying to prove his dad's innocence, and seeing that kind of come full circle there at the end. He's like, no man, I want you to know, your son was a hero. And did his thing, and his run kind of disturbs me. I'm not gonna lie, man. It looks too wonky. Yeah, does not look humane.
Doesn't look like a run.
Yeah, he doesn't even look like he's running. Humans run straight up. He looks like he's leaning forward, and then it's
skating. Looks like he's skating.
Man. I mean, he is into very competitive, figure skating. So. But that was my one little issue that I had with him. But
that last fight scene was more fleshed out with Snyder.
Yes.
Because I felt it was a bit rushed in the Justice League.
Yeah.
Especially with the entrance of Superman. Like, it was very, very rushed.
Yeah.
Whereas here, obviously Superman was still a small part of the fight, but I think we got enough character building in Superman.
Exactly.
And, building with the team.
And I think it was great the direction they went in here. I mean, with Justice League, Superman comes and then the day is saved.
And Superman basically does everything. Whereas here, he did most of the stuff.
Yeah, they were still working as a team. Yeah. But the bigger thing for me is having him come through, and then they still lose first. Then Barry reversing time, and then when Superman steps in at the right moment, he's able to help to save the day. I like that it emphasizes even more so than Justice League the need for Superman's return and why taking such a huge risk. Because again, keep in mind, remember Batman v Superman. I almost said Jesse Eisenberg now. Lex Luthor goes. He does that whole thing where he's bringing Zod to life / turning him into Doomsday sort of thing. This could have easily gone in that direction, and I don't know about you, but I feel like the one thing, or one of the things that Justice League did better is highlighting the risk behind it. The whole thing about the pet cemetery. I don't know if they just went in 2 different directions, but did the same thing.
I am more partial towards the Snyder Cut.
Okay.
Maybe they didn't show the stakes, but I felt like when they had the round table this time, it was, I think it was a little bit longer in the scene. So they fleshed it out a bit more. Yeah. Where they were just chatting and then they're cutting to each one of them. I felt this one, it gave more tension somehow. Okay. And the fact that it could be like more menacing. Should it be, should they get to that stage. Yeah. Okay. And then also that build up where Cyborg is like, no, did you say go?
Yeah, and then he just runs it. Yeah.
So, but I think they did build the tension up because even in the Kryptonian ship this time being Snyder Cut, it was like, don't do it. This is like going against nature type of thing. So I prefer the Snyder Cut version. Okay. Yeah. No. I don't need the reference of Pet Sematary because I don't know what Pet Sematary is.
Okay. No, I got you. So but I like that at least the sentiment was also expressed. The fact that, hey man, look, we want to bring back this godlike creature. We don't know what the hell we're getting ourselves into.
The cool thing is like they don't explicitly say we want to bring back Superman. They just like they all get to at the same place and then they just like look at each other and be like, okay.
Like, I mean, do I have to be the one to say it? And, But I do like how it felt like more of a process to bringing him back. We had the digging of the grave even in the other one, but like, I don't know, man, when they got the box and they get in the van and
yeah,
they just
and they put it in the
there,
van,
and like the way it took time to then get to the ship, I think for
and
me,
then that little chat Alfred and Bruce had is like, what if it goes wrong?
Exactly.
You can't analyze your way out of this. It's like, I'm operating on faith here.
So I guess to your point, they were like a little more subtle with it, but they still drove the point home that, man, look, we're talking about the most powerful being out there, but at the same time, it's emphasizing the need for that risk given the level of threat that they face.
Yeah, they said it's either we die now or we die later.
Exactly.
Like, we're gonna die.
Yeah. So I suppose we have to take this, long shot to put it mildly. Now going back to that scene where Superman comes in, it then ties together nicely the fact that, look, even with this dude, but with the wrong timing, we were gonna lose.
Yeah.
But having him at the right time is what's going to help, solidify our victory. Never mind what would have happened if he was not there at all. It would have just been a complete disaster. So I like how they turned that whole thing, full circle. Yeah. We of course also had Victor Stone, Cyborg, playing a much larger role.
Yeah, it was more like kind of his movie. With everyone else in it.
They turn it into it turned him into the heart and soul, of the film. And
he has some great moments, eh?
Amazing.
The beginning, the way they showed his power scale at the beginning, where you just see the stacks of money.
Man.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Like, oof, there's a reason why I don't have those powers, because man.
Yeah, so just to see that, and then the standout, obviously the relationship with his dad and how that progresses over the movie.
Yeah, all the scenes that they had together. I mean, shout out to...
I don't think Dad needed to die. I don't think that was necessary. He didn't have to stand in
Plus, they did spare his life in Josstice League.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But what I'm saying is he could have did the laser thingy without being in the
just
pod.
Stepping out and then still pressing. I also felt that before, I always felt the impact of the death. And then this time in watching it, I was like,
it's still impactful,
why
but we
did they have
didn't
to kill him?
Yeah, didn't need to kill him.
The mom had already died, and now with their relationship, being on the brink of being repaired, it wasn't quite there yet. I think it would have been nice to just have him, stick around. But shout out, Joe Morton, who played the dad.
Legend,
man. Such an amazing job, and the chemistry between the two of them, and the tension, the quarrels. I think all of that you felt, quite deeply. And speaking of Cyborg, one of the contextual scenes that we gained in the Snyder Cut, which was dope, was when in Josstice League they showed the dad in Victor's, I don't know if they share an apartment or what, but in that apartment, and he's like, oh, Victor, when he had taken the mother box away. But it's not obvious that that's what happened because that's the first reference they make to it being there. Then cut to Snyder Cut, they show the mother box in the closet first. And then later on, they show where, the dad goes to see that it's no longer there.
And they actually show Cyborg burying the mother box.
Yes. Yeah. So the proper, tie in together there, I think was quite key. Again, uncertain which of these scenes extended before
I think
or
that's where Josstice League maybe had a bit of a misstep. There was a lot of missing pieces.
Missing key pieces as well. I mean, it's one thing to cut, a movie's run time, but you still need the connecting dots to show themselves and not fully rely on exposition to kind of fill in those gaps. I don't know if there's any other major differences that you want to highlight between the two.
I think they took between Josstice League and Snyder Cut the script changes. So there was a slight script change where it wasn't there weren't like force jokes in there.
Yes.
So bring out the big guns and Aquaman sitting on the lasso. So those weren't there. Because Aquaman, I felt in Snyder Cut looked pretty badass because he's like devil's advocate in the team. Because he's like, how do we know you're not working for
Plus, remember, he's not your typical hero.
He's
not yet.
And he's not a team player either.
Yeah, because that's what I'm getting at. Even in his old world, he didn't want to take on the mantle of ruling Atlantis and so on. So of course, even with joining the Justice League, it makes sense for him to have that outsider perspective.
Standoffish.
Barry said, "Hey, I'm in immediately," because he's like, "I need friends." Bruce and Diana are more concerned about saving the world. So I think everyone's character kind of stayed true to who they were, and it
whereas
worked well.
Justice League had those MCU elements where they're trying to put in jokes that
where they just were not needed, and I mean, one of which was there when the parademons had kidnapped everyone, and there was a scene where Barry slipped up and then he fell on top of Wonder Woman.
Yes.
So, in case you didn't know, there was quite some trouble on set when Joss Whedon came into the mix. He clashed quite a bit with the actors. And
I know Ray Fisher was quite outspoken about that.
One of the first, who came out to speak against him was Ray Fisher, who played Victor Stone or Cyborg in the movie. He was like, no man, this guy's an asshole, this guy's racist and all of that. And then people felt comfortable coming out with their own stories. So Gal Gadot didn't want to shoot that scene because she felt it was unnecessary. And if you pay close attention, Wonder Woman has her head turned away from the camera because it was the stunt woman who then basically did that. So on a couple fronts, but even when you, as you said, listen to the dialogue, unnecessary jokes and that sort of thing, it's like, man, so what the hell was this guy thinking?
The dialogue was definitely, I would say, better in Snyder Cut.
Yes.
Yes, there were some nice funny moments, and they didn't seem forced. Yeah. They were like part of your character, but not overdone.
Yes.
Like they still had the Diana and Bruce touching hands, but it's okay. We see what you guys are
without all the other stuff on top of it. Yeah, it was more palatable.
It wasn't like all the guys hitting on Wonder Woman.
Yes. Even that little unnecessary speech, not entirely unnecessary, but like that quip where Aquaman is like, you're so gorgeous and whatever. Yeah. It's like, we're not here to do that, man. We were talking about saving the world, and if you're scared, you're scared. Fine, let's stick to that part of it,
and then big differences in the movies, I think, as well as the character designs.
Yeah.
Steppenwolf for one,
the biggest one.
They made him more of a monster, but he looked more human as more of a monster. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think
you're talking Justice League, right?
Justice League, they tried to make him look human, but he looked weird.
Yes, he looked like a weird human.
But here he looked more like a monster, but looked weirdly more human.
Yeah.
But I think maybe because the eyes were designed so well. Yes. Like if you just look at whenever Steppenwolf was looking at you, it's like real eyes. Like it's staring, piercing into your soul. And just his armor as well, and how it's like always like moving and shifting.
Animatronic element to it.
That looked pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And he was just looked bulkier as well, so more menacing.
Yes.
So they got Steppenwolf's menacing right to this time.
Yeah. Like a proper threat to be feared now.
Yeah. Obviously, they chose the black suit in Snyder Cut over the typical blue and red.
What I would have loved is a little more. I mean, look, if you think about Batman, hell, even Iron Man, people that change suits constantly, there's always a practical element to it. If you think back to Batman v Superman, Batman wore, that metal suit, of course, to, add some protection when fighting against Superman. But with Superman, I don't mind him changing costumes. However, some context would have been nice. Maybe just a young line that, hey, my father told me my family wore this for, I don't know, if it's for certain occasions or to symbolize something, and because he just comes back with the black suit, and of course it's a big difference. The Justice League, he wore his normal suit here, the black one, but I'm like, I don't understand the significance.
Because it was still the same Clark Kent Superman.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? There was no. Yes, they alluding to something happening in the future, but it hasn't. I get what you're saying. It hasn't happened now.
Yeah. Even if we did say remove a couple scenes, they could have added the one way because he went to the ship to get the suit.
Yeah.
Show us what happened
and
there.
It was quite,
Maybe that's where
really
the context came
like that scene, just with the dads talking, like the dads' voices, like Jonathan Kent. That was nice. But I guess, as you're saying, like maybe Jor-El gives a bit of context.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like the longest thing, but just
a little bit.
Just let us know what's up. But
because it's a cool aesthetic. Don't get me wrong. When it came out, I was like, oh man, that's pretty cool.
Badass.
It still is, but But I get what you're saying. Some more context. Mm-hmm. Also, the parademons, they were a little bit different. I can't tell you how they were different, but they were a little bit different.
The design and also the focus, I suppose. Because remember, in Justice League, you had the scene where Batman is using the bad guy to lure them because they smell fear and that whole thing. And even when they explode or whatever, then they leave like those 3 boxes on the Yeah, I don't know if that added much. I was fine with that not being, included in the whole Snyder Cut. Yeah.
I didn't miss it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so the character designs I enjoyed a little bit better in the Snyder Cut. Yeah, and then I think those are the main ones, like the character design.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think for me those are pretty much all the things that stood out.
Oh, what also stood out was I think the music was a bit better in the Snyder Cut.
Oh yes.
It like the music added to the tone of the scene at each time.
Yeah. But again, remember, right, with Zack Snyder crafting this thing pretty much top to bottom. But I think the hindsight thing doesn't necessarily play in here. If you think about Batman v Superman, if you think about Man of Steel, movies where Zack Snyder is again top to bottom working on it, he then connects everyone. Okay, I'm gonna get this composer. Here's what we're gonna do here and all of that. I don't know if Joss Whedon did the work to go all the way back and try to, with him it was more fun type music or whatever, upbeat thing that he tried to do. So, but for Zack Snyder, I mean, again, it's his original vision as well. I think that definitely added, as you're saying, making sure that the context, even with relation to the music, is punched up and is on point. So because all these other movies had the same tone, I don't doubt that this would have happened either way. So it was pretty cool.
So I just felt the music was a little bit more.
No, without a doubt. I was interested to see when watching the opening credits for Justice League where Joss Whedon's name would pop up, and then I noticed it said directed by Zack Snyder, but then for the story, then it said Joss Whedon, because Chris Terrio is the guy who wrote the screenplay. Then I think they gave him a co-writing credit on there. I was like, oh, okay, that's how his name is going to be included in there. And I mean, no surprise, this is also a one and done deal, at least. Well, yeah, pretty much, because the DCEU is over with Joss Whedon and the DC universe. Granted, probably had a little to do with his controversy because it turns out, Justice League is not the only movie scene where he was giving people a hassle. I mean, even Ben Affleck went and said the reshoots were the most horrific experiences he's ever had on set. I'm like,
this man's been there for like 20, 30 years.
This is Ben Affleck, dog, And so, whatever the hell Joss Whedon was on, jeez, man.
Not doing himself any favors.
Nah, dog. Which is such a disappointment when you hear these things about, people whose work you've enjoyed. Because, I mean, he's got quite a number of classics under his belt. It's just a shame that it came at the expense of people not necessarily enjoying themselves while working with you. Fun fact, remember the scene at the coffee shop where Lois Lane, she steps out basically. Yeah. And then she stopped to do something. Oh, open her umbrella. When you look in the restaurant, you see Zack Snyder just chilling, drinking coffee.
Oh.
Yeah, so he, pulled a young little Easter egg session there.
He pulled the, what is it? Tarantino.
Yeah. I actually don't know if he's done it in other movies, but I found that one quite interesting. It's one of those, not necessarily blink and you miss it, but you kind of need to know what you're looking for because,
if you know, you know kind of
thing. Basically, yeah. But again, overall, we obviously enjoyed the Zack Snyder cut a lot more.
Yeah, and just, again, while it's coming to my mind, the story, the backstory as well, was told so much better this time.
Yes.
Like the war, that ancient war.
Dog. Is the one with the
all
the
gods,
heroes united and all of that.
And then the Green Lantern as well.
Even how it played out, seeing the different elements.
And just the way Diana, because I think in Justice League, it was just the fire and then she was like, oh, invasion.
Yes.
But here she went into the dungeon or the crypt.
And that's where it was depicted, what has happened and exactly.
Yeah, so there's more story there.
And the other one, it seemed like, automatically you just know this. And then you just assume, okay, probably, taught growing up and whatever. But it was closely tied to what is actually happening here. And I enjoyed that as well.
And then obviously that scene, they retconned it. They changed it from Steppenwolf to Darkseid.
Which one now?
The Ancient War.
Yes. As far as who they were fighting against. Yeah. It was really badass, man. Like seeing everyone come together like that,
And it's really cool to see that they dipped in the Green Lantern there as well.
Yes.
And
I like how
that was gonna happen, but it's not happening now.
Of course, yeah.
But it will happen, hopefully.
We definitely are getting it in the DCEU, but it will of course be a separate thing from what has been established. They've got a series coming out
Okay.
At some point, they've cast the
Hal Jordan or
not Hal Jordan. It's the black dude, Jon Stewart.
Oh yeah.
And then I don't know if you watched Rebel Ridge. He's kind of newish. Aaron Pierre. He's going to be playing that guy. And then Kyle Chandler. I don't know if you know the name. You definitely know the face. The Wolf of Wall Street. The FBI dude who caught Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, I think if I see his face.
Okay. He's going to play an older lantern. But yeah, the casting is quite exciting. It's the short story on this. So soon you're going to be getting it.
In James Gunn we trust.
And of course, James Gunn's universe.
So I think that was it. I don't know. Any other thoughts that you have that you want to bring up?
Nah, I think for me, man, the sentiment has been expressed as far as, Joss Whedon just came in, did a lot of unnecessary things.
Yeah.
It's a simple question of, which ones were his own doing, and which ones were the studio's. Either way, it was unnecessary. And shout out to Zack Snyder, and I'm glad he got to, realize his vision. He even has a dedication at the end, which says for autumn, which is his deceased daughter. And I was like, man, it was a dope send-off for him, because at that point it had already been established that the universe is done. So
to be honest, I would like in 10 years time, I just want all the ideas and scripts that he wrote for all the stuff to just be leaked.
So I don't know to what extent he's developed them, but if you check online, there is ideas that have been put out already on some. He wanted to do this movie and then that one, and there was a Justice League trilogy he was planning, and all of these other things.
Well, there's definitely at least 2 more Justice Leagues at least.
Yeah. But
Dark Side, and then Lex Luthor.
The other one also,
Lex Luthor maybe. Oh yeah.
The nightmare scenes coming to life, and so Superman going dark, and so, I mean, I've said so many times how excited I was.
Oh man, and those nightmare scenes were class as well.
They were hella dope. Even the one they had in here, Deathstroke's introduction, and
right at the end, and then it's just Bruce and Joker having a monologue.
Yeah, dog.
And they're just going at each other, and
I like that it was very clear that we are forced to work together, but at the end of this, I'm gonna kill your ass. No two ways about it, So one thing Zack Snyder did
what is it? And then Bruce just dropping an F-bomb.
Yeah, dog, So I like that. One thing that Zack Snyder does very, very well is just keep you engaged in the larger story as well. Not just watching whatever movie you're watching now, but on some, they're gonna do this next. I can't wait. Just getting you all excited for that. But I think we pretty much hit all the major notes that we wanted to.
And if we haven't, let us know.
Yeah, man, hit us up in the comments and tell us what we missed out on, or what your take was on this, basically. And with that said, it pretty much brings us to the end of this, review/comparison. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, follow us on Instagram, the Phantom Geek Zone. And I guess before we go, the top 5, right, in terms of our DC.
Oh, you want to do rating first?
Ratings first.
Yeah, okay, Snyder Cut. Let's do Snyder Cut.
Just Snyder Cut.
Snyder Cut? Oh.
We might as well just throw both, man. I would give Justice League, especially with the comparison. On its own, I would have given it a higher rating. But with the comparison, I'm giving it a 5, man.
5, I would, 5.5, 6. That's kind of my...
I would give it a 5. And then the Snyder Cut, I would give a solid 8.
Yeah, 8 as well. It could have been higher. I think if the runtime was
better managed. Yes. Yeah. I'm of the same opinion. And then in terms of our rating, for this, it will probably be easier to just slot it in.
Yeah.
As far as its placement, it's gonna go to number 2.
Okay.
In our top 5, I believe. Yeah. So it's Man of Steel, and then the Snyder Cut, and then Batman v Superman, and then Wonder Woman, and then as at this point, that's pretty much it. The fourth one is
Aquaman,
fine, but we'll sort it out, in its own review. So check that when it drops as well. But that's pretty much it from us. We'll catch you at the next one. Peace.